Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the IMAA's Insights and Innovation Series for a very interesting one with our good partners at GWI and Dom Birch, dialing in from Singapore today, but he was in Sydney last week. So this is where we're going to look at social media trends in 2023. This is fascinating. I've got a little glimpse at this. It's a deep dive into, the things that are happening, but probably the most interesting thing is unbiased. So whenever we get one of the social media guys to come in, it's always a little bit skewed, and they tell a little bit of a story about what you guys want to know. This is an overarching, trusted view about what's happening into the market, where the eyeballs are, where the audience is, and it's I hope something you'll enjoy as much as I did preview of it. So Dom, over to you to take things over.
Thanks, Sam. So hi, everyone. So thank you for coming today to learn a little bit more about social media trends. So today we're going to do a deep dive into top trends on social media, answer some of key questions that media agencies are asking. So typically things like how is social media usage changed over time? Which platforms are most popular? And what are the key behavioral trends to really know? So just to introduce myself again, so yeah, as I say, I'm Dom. I'm a director here at GWI. So been with the business roughly 6 years from our London office, but moved over to Singapore in the last year and a half. And my role is very much working Australia, New Zealand, and the independent agency world. So a little bit about GWI for anyone on the call who isn't familiar with us. So GWI is very much an audience insight technology company. So we actually represent one of the biggest panels of respondents and represent 2.7 billion internet users globally. And this covers 52 markets. So of course, that's going to include Australia, but also, the wider APAC region, as well as, the US and the UK and other regions as well. So this particular webinar will use a mixture of our data sets that we have available. So GWI Core is very much our flagship survey. And so that's one of the core kind of offerings that we have. In addition to that, we have GWI Kids, which is looking at more child, behaviors and consumer insights, as well as what we call GWI Zeitgeist, which is actually fielded on a monthly basis and gives flexibility to ask consumers questions about what's happening right now, essentially. So we make this data available through an intuitive subscription-based platform, which allows you to kind of deep dive and cross-analyze different data points and audiences, and helps you kind of get that better understanding of those consumers. So there's a mixture of B2C data, but also B2B data. You can look at things like social media habits, purchase journey, attitudes, lifestyles, media consumption, and much, much more. So in terms of who we work with, it really is a range of different organizations. So as I say, I work exclusively with the independent agency world, but that's not to say that we don't work with the likes of network agencies, but also brands directly using GWI as well. So it could be, looking at, the corporate kind of world, as well as the agency world as well. And as I say, if any questions on kind of use cases, very happy to answer them. So let's dive into a little bit about social media. So, social media is a huge part of all of our lives these days. It affects how we communicate, get information, and even do business. So by knowing how much time people are spending on it and how habits have changed over time, we can make, ensure that, smarter marketing decisions are made. So looking at this, interesting kind of chart here. So it's saying that what you can actually see on this slide here is the average amount of time consumers say they spend on social networks on a typical day between 2012 to 2022. So actually, while social media usage globally initially peaked at Q2 2020, with most regions, social media usage actually decreased since the height of the pandemic. What's interesting here, though, is actually Australia has bucked this general trend, with its consumers spending 11% more time on social media per day in 2022 compared to 2020. So there's very much an increase in the Australian market. Now, what's interesting here is that you can also look at things like generational differences, because they tell a really interesting story. So, it may come as no surprise that, the likes of Gen Z, spend the most time on social media. What might surprise you, though, that in the time they spend online is actually decreasing. And this is in direct contrast to the likes of baby boomers, who actually now spend 15% more time on social platforms than before the pandemic. So while Gen Z often takes the spotlight here, it's high time for brands to recognize this kind of more untapped potential of baby boomers and engage with, quite an influential demographic. Because, the truth is, baby boomers are, not only becoming one of the largest and wealthiest generations, but they also are quite active on social media platforms where marketers already invest. So they're spending more time on social and exploring the online world actually more adventurously. So, however, despite the presence and influence they have, baby boomers actually remain severely kind of underrepresented in the advertising they encounter. So actually 68% are less likely to feel represented by the ads that they see. So I think it's actually crucial to kind of break down the stereotypes of baby boomers being, technophobic. Instead of solely focusing on, the likes of younger groups, marketers should take a more inclusive approach to, their marketing and actually cater for this kind of influential and overlooked demographic. Because as I say, addressing the lack of representation in ads will enable brands to be, to truly connect on a more meaningful level. So definitely one kind of area to consider. What's interesting as well, so actually privacy is in high demand, especially in Australia. So social media privacy is actually valued incredibly kind of high in terms of priority when it comes to Australia. Consumers in this market stand out for a high level of vigilance in setting all their actual social media accounts to private. So actually we're seeing a bit of a nod to this trend among Gen Z. And in our GWI Kids study, Gen Alpha, there's actually been about a 23% drop in the number of 12 to 15-year-olds using social media to post everything that they do. So what does this mean? People are being more selective about the information that they give away, which means that this can make more difficult for brands to profile and understand their target audiences. So especially in markets where privacy is considered in the spotlight, brands will need to make up for this preference and make sure they have more in-depth understanding of consumers through, multiple kind of data sources. And that's exactly what kind of GWI enables you to do. So now we're looking at how much time people are actually using and spending on social media. Let's take a look at a little bit of a deeper dive into, typically what top platforms they're using. So here we can see it's really actually easy to focus on the apps which are growing quickly in popularity. So, but actually benchmarking them against traditional platforms is also really important. So app growth alone doesn't necessarily give us, the full picture of how people are behaving on social. So take Facebook as an example. Despite dips in actually monthly active users in the last year, it's still the most widely used app in Australia and actually will remain so for the foreseeable future. So it's actually really important to separate, hype from reality. A lot of kind of news media will work to give us an exciting story, even if it's not the most accurate one, while data shows us how many people are actually behind using the actual platforms itself. Cool. So actually, interestingly, it leads on to a point about trending apps. So it can be easy for marketers with, limited budgets to feel like they might be missing out on new platforms like Be Real, new platforms like Be Real emerging onto the scene. And on this slide, we're kind of going through to show you why there's no need to kind of worry about that. Because by looking at the overlaps in social media usage, on average, Australians will have roughly 5.5 social media messaging app accounts. This is kind of ramped up to 7 when looking at Gen Z. You can actually reach 96% of all Australian social media users through the top 3 platforms. So what that means is there's actually these platforms that exhibit significant overlap, with just 6%, as you can see here, of Instagram users being exclusive to that platform. So what this means is that there's no need to get too worked up about the number of platforms they use, as none of them have an isolated audience. So actually, to get the most out of your social media engagement, it's important to focus on things like tailoring communication, strategy, tone of voice to suit kind of each platform. Cool. So one app that possibly warrants the hype, you might have guessed, is TikTok. So TikTok teens, are now seeing this is the most likely way they're going to actually, they're 25% more likely to say that TikTok is their favorite social media app, and then we've all seen kind of TikTok have significant, consistent growth over a period of time. But actually, it's not just younger groups either. The number of baby boomers who are using this app has almost tripled in the last 2 years, and they're attracting a lot of attention on the platform itself. So it's concerning that only 2% of baby boomers in Australia feel represented in the ads that they see, which is actually more than 4 times lower than the global average. So it's actually crucial that you kind of address this issue, dispel various kind of stereotypes, and recognize importance of reaching out to them via social media. Cool. So moving on, there are big benefits for any brand to kind of be on TikTok, regardless of the age of the target audience. But it's simply not enough to have presence on the platform. You want to understand why they're using certain platforms. So while things like industry conversations predominantly focus on trends in platform reach, the real shift lies in the why and the how, and the values of the platforms in these specific consumers' lives. So it's crucial for marketers to kind of understand the distinct kind of motivations and behaviors of their target audiences. For example, consumers are looking for entertaining content on TikTok, as you can see, and actually finding out new information about products is happening on Pinterest, and actually keeping up to date with news on LinkedIn is quite prominent as well. So recognizing user expectations and adapting your approach to suit each platform will actually help you establish stronger, more meaningful connections with your target audiences. Awesome. So yeah, moving on to the third and final topic of today's session, very much looking at social commerce. So we want to explore what really happens during the purchase journey on social. So a good place to start is to discuss typically where the brand discovery is actually happening. So one trend that we've seen is product research is becoming increasingly discovery driven. So compared to 2 years ago, when finding new ideas and inspiration has actually increased by 12% in the reasons people will give to actually going on the internet. And I think a large part of this is going to be down to the social media space. So 45% of consumers are actually finding new products and brands across all social media touch points. So ads on social media have become the top way Gen Z are discovering new brands and products, and this is actually ranking well above the likes of search engines and other more traditional channels. Cool. So now that we've kind of looked at how and where brand discovery happens, it's important to kind of delve into the reach consumers through social. So again, interestingly to note that influencers carry heaps of potential here. So they help drive traffic to brand contents and websites through social media, and ultimately they're going to drive brand engagement. So social media users follow a range of different celebrity accounts on social media, and consumers in Australia are actually 11% more likely to follow influencers on social media than the global average. So on the left, we can see here, that influencers are seen to be more engaging than actual traditional ads by the likes of Gen Zs and millennials. What's more is actually 43% of Gen Z say they're likely to purchase a product recommended by an influencer. So it's a really important area to kind of consider with your marketing efforts. Nice. So, social commerce is actually, gaining immense popularity in Australia. So, among all the countries in APAC, Australia stands out with actually the highest growth rate in social commerce. engagement. And so 42% of consumers in the market have used the likes of Facebook Marketplace or, Instagram shopping bag in the last month. Even on a global scale, Australia ranks second, with actually only the UAE ahead of it in terms of social commerce growth. So, it comes as no surprise that, APAC markets experiencing the most significant growth in social media engagement are also witnessing, a surge in social commerce participation. So, it's crucial to acknowledge various market nuances, across, different kind of consumer behaviors. So, for example, in the likes of, say, North America, consumers show a higher tendency to make things like in-app purchases, whereas consumers in China and, say, several Southeast Asian markets are actually more inclined to make, online purchases, where they actively engage with live stream shopping. So on the other hand, though, Australian consumers exhibit a bit of a preference for conducting thorough online research actually before making a purchase decision. So, they are 35% more likely to use the internet for researching products and brands, and actually 36% more likely to utilize them for actually planning things like vacations, interestingly. As a result, consequently, the approach of, their marketing strategies have to adapt to the kind of unique preferences. Cool. So I guess in summary, so we've got a few things to kind of take away today. So I think a key one to mention is, the likes of, baby boomers are spending more time on social, being the only generation to actually increase and sustain their usage since the pandemic. So this actually presents, quite a large opportunity to address their underrepresentation in ads and actually connect more meaningfully with this influential demographic on social media. The other thing to consider is social media privacy is a huge top priority in Australia. So even in young users, we see significant decrease in users sharing everything they do on social media. So this trend poses a bit of a challenge because marketers, the ability to profile these audiences, it becomes more difficult. So an effective solution lies with actually leveraging, research and syndicated research to gain that kind of more in-depth understanding, but also don't compromise on the individual's privacy as well. So it's important to know that, how many people are behind each platform. Facebook remains most widely used, despite newcomers making a scene. Most of their users lie on these established apps. So it can be easy, to, get worried if you have limited budget when you're kind of marketing on social, feel like you're missing out on kind of new platforms like Be Real, as an example. But there's no need to immediately kind of worry because, with just the top 3 platforms, marketers can actually reach, 96% of Australian social media users, and they work exclusively together. So, the main aim here is to focus on tailoring communication strategy and actually suit each platform for a maximum engagement. And then in our final section, we kind of shine the light on social commerce. So social networks are, the top research channel among Gen Z, and a lot of millennials aren't far behind, which is, setting new standards when it comes for searching and buying new products online. Cool. So hopefully that was insightful for everyone and gave you kind of a good flavor of, the sort of insights that we've got at GWI. What I wanted to do was just show you typically how you would gather that information via our platform. So I'm just going to jump into our dashboards here. I might need to just re-share my screen, so bear with me a moment.
So it always runs smoothly.
Okay, so hopefully now you should be able to see the GWI platform. So this is the user interface. So this is typically what you would see when you were, logging into the platform. A few things to kind of note here. So you've got, although it is considered a self-service platform, you are not alone. You get a support from a dedicated account manager. In addition to that, you can reach out to our customer success team, and they're very timely in terms of helping you out. But the main kind of features are at the top of the screen with the charts, audiences, crosstabs, and dashboards. We also have what we call our Insights tab, which is a pre-made report. So the reports that we kind of saw today, you have a library of content that you can access, and it will look at, a range of different kind of target areas. A lot of these reports will be global, some regional, and some, of course, localized, to the Australian market. But a great place to kind of dive in is the dashboards. And so this is kind of what I've created previously. So what I've done here, this is actually a dashboard which is focusing solely on social. But just to kind of mention as well, so there are actually lots of other pre-made dashboards as well, which kind of look at other target areas. So it's not just solely social media. There's kind of a range of different areas that you can kind of tap into there. And as simple as it is, so you apply your filters. So we're looking at our core data set. You apply the timelines. So looking at data in the last year, but of course you can kind of amend that however you'd like. And then of course you would pick the market that you want to focus on. So in this case, we're going to focus solely on Australia. So you simply apply the location. I've actually added on 4 different target audiences here, which is looking at millennials, Gen Z, Gen X, and baby boomers. So if I wanted to focus solely on, let's say, baby boomers, I've just hide that, and it will kind of edit and adapt the data that you see within the platform. And you can see here, of course, Facebook is most prominent in terms of daily social media use. You can look at the main reasons why different individuals are using social. And then you can look at, favorite social media services, as well as, typically how are people discovering brands via social media. And so with this information, you can actually dig down into more specific detail, not only about, usage and why people are using social platforms, but you can look at specific behaviors within those platforms. And that's across, the likes of, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Snapchat, and so on. So if anyone kind of wants a deeper dive demo, you're very happy to get that set up. But just jumping back to kind of concluding today's session. So it's interesting to take into account, specific reasons why, individuals are actually using GWI. So there are such a range of different use cases. So this is an interesting one. Every agency brief is different, as is every brand. Often there is a lack of information. Other times there's too much. But what GWI enables you to do is to become more targeted with your marketing approach. It helps as a validation tool, takes out the guesswork, and ultimately makes your marketing strategies more effective. So in terms of ROI, what are the main reasons why so many agencies are using GWI? So it's to pitch more effectively and ultimately increase your win rate. It's actually to stand out, in front of the crowd and actually tell original stories, backing them up from data. Is to increase kind of a campaign efficiency and ultimately interact more effectively with your target audiences. In addition to kind of the new business increasing win rates, it will also help you kind of retain and grow out your existing client strategies as well. And ultimately, it's going to save you a lot of time, because I know research it can be quite costly, and it can be time consuming. But actually, GWI will enable you to have that insights, the ability to access those insights very timely and very efficiently, which will help you kind of work on other kind of areas there. So thank you, everyone, for taking the time today to learn a little bit more about GWI. As I say, feel free to reach out to me directly if you wanted to do a deeper dive in the platform. Because as I say, we just focused predominantly on social today, but there's a wide range of different kind of topics that we can explore. And if you are interested in having access to the full report, by all means, feel free to scan the QR code. But yeah, thanks everyone for your time.
Thanks, Dom. Does anyone have any questions for Dom whilst we have him? And so often is the case, but we can connect you afterwards if anyone's interested in finding out more. And also we'll share the video later on today. Just wrapping up again, GWI, thank you again for your support. Thank you for sharing today. Everyone, please don't forget to do the pulse survey. I can't emphasize enough. It's how we keep the lights on here at the IMAA, and it's also going to reward our partners. Don't forget that if anyone wants to go to Adweek and have lunch with myself and some other great agencies and listen about diversity as well as enjoying Adweek, let Beck know. And then the events we've got coming up, there's quite a few of them, so I mentioned them before, I won't go through it again. But thank you everyone for tuning in, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.